Ta-da. All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 46 of the Georgie and Patty Show. I am Georgie.
I am Patty.
And we are very excited today because it's Thursday and we have a super inspiring, awesome guest, Robyn Unwin, with us today. So we love Thursdays where we get to talk to amazing people doing amazing things in the world, which is super, super fabulous. So we always start our show with a quote of the day. So today I have Robyn's quote that I'm going to start with. So her quote that she gave me is, creativity is intelligence having fun, by Albert Einstein, which is so awesome. So
you know, I actually thought about it afterwards, Georgie, that a riff on that is intelligence is taking your creativity to work with you.
Yes. Isn't that
riff on Albert a little bit, but you know, thinking about wholehearted living and you know, really having career and, you know, career not just something that's a segment of one's life, but, you know, wholehearted living. So I kind of like that idea of, you know, always bringing my creativity with me everywhere I go.
It's so good, you know, and I think that fits in. Patty and I have been talking about this a lot over the last little while here about, you know, your career isn't just this little segment. It really is about, it's your life's work. It's what we do for the whole extension, you know, of our life. And that's why it's so important to do the work that you love and the work that really matters to you, where you actually enjoy the process of doing the work, you know. And I think that's what, this is a perfect lead into your bio, which I was going to pull up, but now I'm just going to do my own thing with it. So the work that Robyn does, like, she is an incredibly amazing human being, and she does help people creating their videos and setting up their your home videos situation in a cost-effective way. And really, though, she's super, super passionate about helping her clients and her students get their message into the world using video and helping people to become more confident so that you do get actually doing the video to share your message so that you can make that impact that you want. And she's going to share with us today sort of 5 tips on how we can do that and how we can be more confident. And like you had shared in the email, you know, now is the perfect time. We have this opportunity where putting ourselves out there, especially on video, letting people really get a sense of who we are is really, really, really important, where we can step up as the leaders that I think that we all are. And I think it was last April, when you did the thing in Seattle with Be More You?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
the video training.
The video training she did, it was just a quick little video training. It was so good and so practical. And I was telling Patty about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to get Robyn on our show because, you know, it was so easy. It was so clear. It was so, go to this, come back, here's this, quick little step, like with your phone, you know? So, and I just think you're an amazing human. And I think you're on the planet doing good things, and you resonate like we do with, you know, we're all here to do something amazing. So how can we do more of that? So thank you so much for being here with us today, to share this with our group. And of course, as always, group and Facebookers, please post questions as they come up, because this is obviously an interactive dialogue and we want this to be valuable for everyone. So why don't we start with, what do you love most about that quote?
Well, you know, it's funny. What I love most about the quote is that it's, I think in my early years, I always thought that creativity was something that was maybe a hobby. And it was something that I did, you know, my artistic pursuits or, you know, things that I love to do were creativity. And then there was work. And so that's why, you know, when I say take your intelligence is taking your creativity to work, you know, how I actually got started in video branding was through personal branding first. I was actually working with a video team teaching personal branding. And I was so passionate about the video stuff. I kind of hung around with them all the time and was watching and learning. I'm a broadcast journalist by training and by profession, but I just found it so stressful early in my career and ended up going into communications and PR, which is, you know, seen in the journalistic land as a little bit of a sellout. So I had to get past a little bit of that, I don't know, shame is the wrong word, but feeling like I had sold out somehow in journalism to get back into doing video. And, you know, by that time it was crazy. Video had changed so much. When I learned how to do video, I was literally slicing tape with scissors and gluing it together. That's how I started editing. So when the technology changed, and about 10 years ago, I retaught myself video. It was really through the lens of the way that you opened this interview, Georgie, was through the lens of personal branding. And what do I most love to do? What am I on this earth to do? And making that my greatest pursuit was really what taught me, what showed me the next steps. And the next steps ended up being learning how to shoot video, learning how to edit video in the 2.0 way. And then also learning this world that you ladies are helping people negotiate. And that's this whole world of how to get your message out there online and all of these tools. And that's where I am right now as well. So when you asked me about the quote, right now I am trying to get into Instagram. And so the person I'm learning Instagram from is saying, go out and grab quotes, get any quotes that speak to you. And that's the only quote that I have on my Instagram page. So I'm just so getting started with this, but that's why that quote was so top of mind when you asked about it, Georgie.
That's
And
so
I do
awesome.
love creativity. I just stand for it in all areas of life, in work and in play and in communication. So
That's so cool. And I like, this is what I love about these conversations too, is that it's so authentic, right? Like, hey, I'm just getting started on Instagram. I got one quote on Instagram. I'm trying to figure this thing out. I'm learning, you know, because we were talking about this morning too. And like you were saying, right? I think we often, what stops us is we want things to be perfect before we'll ever put anything out there. Or we're afraid to say, hey, I'm new at this. I thought I had this figured out. Now I'm taking it in a different direction. You know, and I think all of these pieces sometimes stop us from actually showing up. And then it's like, and now I'm going to show up on video and do this whole thing. It's like, oh my goodness, even more scary. And I was listening to a podcast this morning with this, he's like a doctor scientist kind of dude or something. Anyway, I guess he's written a ton of books and he does all of these videos. He's on this cycle of doing every 3 years, he does a book and then he tours for a year and he has all these videos. And so because he's always doing research, the guy asked him, he's like, so do you ever have to go back and you find sometimes what you've said before, and then you get research and it contradicts what you said before? He goes, yep. And then he's like, well, what do you do? He goes, I go make another video. He goes, I add an addendum to the other video I made and say, yeah, what I said in this video, I have new information. I don't believe that anymore. And I'm like, you know what? I think that takes courage to do that, because so often we get stuck in the identity of, I did this, I've been known for this, so this is what I put out. And we're afraid to go back and say, change my mind. And I think it happens.
I just did an interview with a master facilitator named Jim Sorensen, and he was talking about this whole idea of how 20, 30 years ago, we used to do this thing where, you know, if people got on camera, they'd put on their announcer voice, and there was this almost a facade that people brought to being on camera or being in front of people. And then as soon as the camera's off, you hear a different inflection of voice. And I see that for sure as a videographer. Part of my job is to help people, you know, one of the things I kind of giggle inwardly about is I'll get the camera rolling and have a conversation with people. And very often that's the take that we use because they think we're just having a conversation. I've taped it, but they don't necessarily know, because as soon as I say, okay, now we're recording, it's like, oh, you know, the little light scares everybody. So I think that there's, going back to what you were saying too, though, Georgie, about not admitting when we're wrong or not backing up and correcting things. Especially now, people are so demanding authenticity. And there's so much out there. You know, we even look at leadership, and the leaders we admire are the ones who are willing to say, oh, I got that wrong, or I wish I hadn't said it that way. The ones that we don't respect are the ones who, you know, fly outwards and blame everybody else. about something or don't admit that they made a mistake. And we all make mistakes. So it's just almost ridiculous to expect that somebody being visible is going to go through their entire career online or in front of people and not say something they didn't mean or misquote something or have to go back and say, yeah, I got that wrong. It's going to happen. So I love that you've brought that out. It's honesty is the new currency. Honesty and authenticity are the new currency. Perfection is so yesterday.
So hard. I can't even bother to keep up with that. It's be like, oh my gosh, we'd never be on here if it was like that, you know? So I'm curious if you were always confident, because I think even going into a career, I want to be a broadcast journalist, is like, ooh, that's even a little like it requires some confidence to put yourself out there. So how did you get there?
Well, I laugh. I'm really laughing now because I mentioned that I went through broadcast journalism. I took that for my schooling, and I was at that time I was in the middle of an eating disorder. It was horrible to watch myself on video. It was painful. And I let that take me out. And I think that's really, really sad. As a young woman, I was really passionate about reporting. I still am. I have this thing about getting to the truth of things. And I was like a dog with a bone in my 20s. And to let something like not liking the way I look on video take me out. I didn't admit that until quite recently when I started looking at, okay, what is it that I really love helping the people I work with overcome? And it's, no surprise. We end up working with the people we most want to help because they're probably the most like us. And my thing was getting over this fear of visibility. And I still always have a little bit of a push me, pull you with it. If somebody, I'm even on one of these Zoom calls and they say, who wants to volunteer for such and such? I can feel my heart start to pound out of my chest. And I think, okay, well, apparently it's me. Yeah. But sometimes I don't have the gumption to jump in and say, right now it's me being visible, me being seen. And so I don't think we always come into this naturally. I have worked with some people who just love being on stage, love being on camera, love being in front of people. And that's where they get their oxygen. That's not me. Yeah. I'm one of those people who has to overcome a lot. And I really have. I have some real brass tacks tips that will really help. And one of the, some of the things are some of the things I'll leave you with today. Things like framing, lighting, simply practicing seeing oneself on video is a huge, huge help in terms of just getting past ourselves. We start taking ourselves out, I think, when we become overly self-conscious and thinking that we matter to people. We kind of don't. We matter more to ourselves than anybody else on the planet. So I think once I started soothing myself in that way, I started off doing my videos saying, Robyn, really, nobody is going to see this. So don't worry about it. And it was how I kind of, got myself past everything. But visibility, confidence, certainly camera confidence, Georgie and Patty, it's not something that comes naturally to me. A lot of it is the technical training, the practice, and then just doing it. And an accountability team or somebody to bounce things off and keep myself in the chair is gold.
I think it's so true. Not yesterday. Tuesday, I was, I don't know if you're familiar with Ryan Holiday. I was reviewing his book, Perennial Seller. And he says one of the things in there is to recognize just how insignificant you actually are. And and not from that place of like negatively, oh, I don't matter, but just realizing in the grand scheme of things, nobody really cares. No one's really watching. Like, it's such a handful of people. But when you come from that space, you can also show up a little more humble. And you're not really so ego driven that, oh, this is going to be the best thing and 1 million people are going to watch my video. And, not really. You're going to be lucky if like 4 people do, really, in the beginning as it starts to grow. But I think also just recognizing that I think people too, they're watching the video, not with the people that we want to talk to for the most part. They're not actually watching it for how you look or what you're wearing. they're searching for something, they're looking for help. And this is where I think whenever we don't share our message, we're stopping ourselves from actually helping the people who need our help. And when we have a message that really resonates with people, those people are pretty forgiving. You know, is if you say the thing that they're looking for, you know, they're not going to necessarily come back and be like, oh my God, she like bobbles her head a lot, which what, for example, one thing I noticed when I happen to watch our videos, and even if there's no sound, I'm like my head is like this, or I'm like, I nod a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh, my head looks like it's going to fall off, because I'm like, yeah. And the more excited I get, the more it just tilts. I actually had a client once. He goes, you know what? He goes, as soon as I get my first big speaking gig, like when I make $5,000, he's like, I'm gonna have a bobblehead made of you. I'm like, that's awesome. Because
the Georgie bobblehead. That's
right?
awesome.
It's just I bobble my head, and if I thought about it, I would never probably do this. And I think the other thing for us, just like you said, is we announced it publicly that we were going to be doing the show. So when we knew people were going to be there, we had to show up. Like it was just one of those things, for sure. But why don't I let you maybe start with some of your tips for people, or I'll just keep asking you questions. And because I know there's a lot of people that are in our community that they do want to do more video. And, you know, often it does help to have those, a little bit of structure, just to give people that confidence to show up. Where often I think with a little age sometimes too, like you say, with Patty and I, were like, well, we're just doing it. And then 46 shows in, now it's just, you just do it.
Now you're really doing it. That's
and then
the thing.
we'll get better at it. We'll finesse it. I'm sure someday we'll look back at these videos. Remember those videos we made in the beginning? That was hilarious.
One of my most valuable learnings was watching Marie Forleo, who I consider one of my mentors, and I took her B School program about 3 or 4 years ago, and I really like her. I just like her style and her vibe. Yeah. And she started off with just her computer in her living room, and now she's got a full-on stylized studio. But we all start somewhere, and you know, I think the thing that will really keep people from going on video is thinking that they need big tech. They need, you know, I look at this camera behind me, and I use that for my professional productions, but I'm teaching people how to use nothing but a phone. You know, it's hilarious because I've got probably $30,000 worth of equipment. And I go back now, and I have been using my phone throughout this last 3 months. I haven't used any of my equipment. I've been using nothing but my phone. So we have 4K gorgeous cameras in our back pockets. We don't need, you know, fancy producers. We don't need studios and mega budgets like we used to. All we need to know is how to learn how to use this tool, and then how to be held accountable so that we actually do. And it's that's been my simple formula: is get out and do it, and then simply share with somebody when I have. And that's been my probably formula for the last year in building an online course and creating, you know, certain platforms and places where I can connect with people, and even social media, boy, kicking and screaming. I have not been a social media lover, but I'm really, now that they've got IGTV and all of the Facebook lives, which we're on right now, I thought, okay, Robyn, time to get your social media game on. So I'm getting myself in there, just as you say, Georgie, because I wouldn't say I got it wrong. I just didn't really see the value of social media in the way that I wasn't using it. So now I am starting to use it a little bit more, and it's actually a pretty fun little world.
Yeah, I think it's that sort of that reframe of what it is, because we were very much like that too. It's like, oh my God, social media. Like, I just want to have no time for Facebook, just scrolling through the ridiculousness. And then it's like, hang on a second. If our people are on Facebook, then let's create our information to talk to our people. It's not actually about connecting with everybody on Facebook, but it's a fantastic platform to actually be able to bring a community together and to be able to put our message and our information out there so that those who do resonate with it can hear it, as opposed to just boycotting everything because, oh, that's stupid, or, you know, whatever it is, mostly because I've created my own belief about what this platform is and who's on it, instead of stepping back and go, is that actually true?
Right.
When I look at it, actually, no, a lot of our people are on Facebook. So how can
Yeah.
we use that in more of a positive way to do that? And for us, we do the live thing because we know if we were to actually sit down and make videos, we weren't getting it done. So we're like, well, we'll just go live,
Yep.
you know? And if we had to edit it, it's probably never going to happen, mostly because I don't know how to do it. And it seems really hard. And I'm just like, oh, forget it. So, but live, we're just live, you know, and it is what it is. And it will get
What did we
better.
say at the very beginning, Georgie? Done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. That's
Better than
right.
perfect.
Exactly.
Well, I will get to I know that some people are really wanting to hear some of the video,
Yes.
specific video tips. So I will get to that. But I wanted to preface it by saying that don't be daunted by major equipment and feeling that you have to learn and buy all of these big pieces of equipment. We've got pretty much most of what we would need, most of us, in our back pocket. And the three of us are using computers right now. So I'm going to keep it specific to Zoom because I know that a lot of people in the last couple of months, some probably kicking and screaming, are on Zoom, and some, in some cases, forced to be on Zoom. So I thought it would be helpful for people if I did offer some sort of filmmaker's perspective on some of the ways we can actually make the screen, make ourselves look the way we want to in the screen. And
Nice.
so the first thing I usually do is I think of my framing. And first I actually do this just so that I'm the right distance from my webcam. And so about arm's length is the ideal. Now you'll see the three of us. Georgie, you're a little farther away, and Patty, you're a little bit closer together, or closer to the webcam. It doesn't really matter. It's just that if you kind of keep yourself, just, that's right, just arm's length away, then people aren't going to see too much of your background. And in some cases, if you're in it's almost like standing too close to somebody. If you're too much in the frame, then, you know, it's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Especially if you've got a noisy backdrop or something like that. Patty, you've got a nice clean backdrop, so it doesn't look aesthetically unpleasing, but sometimes it can look like a bit of a goat rodeo in the background when somebody's too close in the frame. And you'll see my backdrop. I've got a lot of action going on. I happen to do most of my Zooms in my home office. I also have a stark white background, which I'll use for some of my more professional trainings, but I just don't like it as much. And I do find that it looks a little bit stark. So that's another thing to think about is what's going on in your background. So first of all is your framing, how far away from the camera you are. And then I'll just take a look and make sure that it's not too busy. I wouldn't go any busier than I've got in my backdrop. Sometimes it gives people something to look at. If I've got something brand specific in the backdrop, in my background, I think that's helpful. I've had clients where I've encouraged them not to shoot their videos in their dining room or their living room because we're seeing their, you know, buffet hutch and their personal life behind them. And it's not the end of the world, but I think for those of us in business, if we have even just a curtain behind us, we'll look a little bit more professional than being in our kitchen or in our living space. And so another thing that I help people with and work on with my clients is eyeline. And so there's three components to that. One is where our eyes are in the frame. So if you put like a 3 grid, you know, those grids that we have in our cameras, the tic-tac-toe grids, in a perfect world, I would want my eyes to be on the top third of that tic-tac-toe line. So a lot of times people will be down here in the screen on the bottom third. That's not great framing. And even in the middle, it's not bad. That's not bad framing, but optimally from a film perspective, it's more pleasing to the eye if you're on the top third. And I happen to be in the middle, but sometimes I'll take, you know, put my outside eye in the top of the corner when I'm framing people. And that's a really flattering angle for interviews and for working with people. Georgie, where you are is perfect. Yeah. Yeah, Patty, you guys are both. This is the thing that happens when I start doing this training live. I see people all shifting around, or else I see people blacking themselves out because they think they're being judged. We're not judging, we're just helping. And the other thing that I will say about eyeline as well, so keeping yourself situated in the proper place in the frame. And also one of the things that's weird about Zoom that it's kind of a weird skill that we're going to have to get better at is staring at the camera rather than staring at the people on the screen. Because we'll look, if I'm looking at Georgie right now, you can see I don't have any connection with the camera.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like I'm talking to nobody rather than talking to, you know, my audience, my people, my real, so your audience won't think that you're connecting with Georgie or Patty. They'll just think that you're off looking at something else on the screen. So it's a weird thing to use our peripheral vision and stare straight at the webcam when we're talking to people.
It's funny. I remember that when you were doing the thing with Be More You, and I remember the tic-tac-toe lines and the eye line thing. So I was like, okay, where would that be? Where would that be? Like, it's funny, the little things that but it's useful. It's super useful.
Well, one of the tips I leave with some of my clients is when you're filming on your phone, in your settings, you can find your grid display. So activate your grid display so you can actually see your tic-tac-toe. And if you're sinking below the line, then you just have to reframe a little bit. But that, as filmmakers, that's what we're doing, is we're following what's called the rule of thirds in our frame composition. Let's see. So I talked about the rule of thirds. I talked about focus. I talked about placement in the screen. The other thing to keep in mind is lighting. And one of the things that people will often do is situate themselves right in front of a window, thinking, oh, I'd get great lighting in front of the window. Only if you're facing the window. So you have to make sure that you have your window in front of you. If you have all of your light source behind you, you'll actually ghost yourself. And so you'll look completely washed out in the background or in the foreground. So ladies, you both have beautiful lighting. Your lighting is bright, it's natural. I'm using a little combination of daylight, and occasionally I will use a ring light on more cloudy days. And that's one of those halo lights. You can see actually one in the way background there. They're really helpful. They can get a little expensive if you're on Zoom 24/7 and you're using a ring light all day, but I do like those for a nice, natural, even lighting. And they're not very expensive. You can get a ring light with a tripod for your smartphone for about $120 on Amazon. That's Canadian, so it's 20 cents American. And in terms of lighting, you can also, a lot of times people say, well, I have to get expensive light sources. You can use tin foil and a foam board, or even just a white foam board to bounce light into your screen and onto your face. So I'll very often have a bounce screen coming underneath to just fill in some of the shadows underneath, because we do get quite shadowy on laptops and, with smaller cameras. So I find that helps with lighting. I talked about background. The last thing is about sound. So I'm using a USB mic that I can plug straight into my laptop. If you're going on Zoom, I highly recommend, though, using headphones. Georgie, you're using headphones, which is perfect. Zoom really struggles to pick up the voice for people if we're not using a microphone. So definitely using headphones will help. I was on a Zoom call this morning before this one, and the couple of the people were not using microphones, and both their screens froze. And a couple of other people's froze along with it who were using microphones, but I'm pretty sure it's because Zoom was working so hard to try and pick up their voices that I thought, I'm too tired.
I have my little Yeti hiding over here as well.
Yeah, Blue Yetis are great. That's probably, I've got an Audio Technica. For $100, maybe a little bit more, you can get an absolutely beautiful studio quality mic, and it just goes straight into your computer. And podcasters are kicking butt these days with little more than $150 and creating an amazing studio. So I highly recommend if you're going on Zoom a lot, it really does make a
Yeah.
difference having a nice USB mic. So the Georgie's Blue Yeti is a great recommendation. And I've got these tips summarized. If you go to my website, which is robynunwin.com, it's Robyn with a Y, Unwin, UNWIN.com. My opt-in is a video just talking about these specific things. I'll have it up there for a little while, but I did it just during this time, knowing that a whole bunch of people are going on Zoom and freaked the you-know-what out about it. So I thought I'll get that up there, and feel free to download that and
That's
share it
awesome.
and use it. And
Yeah,
and
we'll put
hopefully
it.
that was helpful.
We'll put it in our thing too. What I think the biggest part of what some of this stuff does too is that when we feel a little more professional, we show up more professional, right? And I think, or it allows us to start moving forward, because we see that with our clients too. Like one of the things we do is we help people do a like an assessment, right? So that then they can go in and they have a format to their sales calls and when they're talking to people. And it's having that framework where we've had people, oh, I just feel so professional. And I think that's what often it's creating that internal feeling, which then creates the confidence because it's coming from inside. So I know that, okay, I've checked my background. I know I have a few things I can do that's going to make this a little bit easier. And sometimes it even takes you outside of the thoughts in your head, because then you're like, okay, is my camera straight? Am I looking there? How's my eye line? How far am I? Okay, I'm feeling good about this. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. And it's creating that internal feeling that gets you started, because then once you click live, you're like, oh, here I am, and then after 30 seconds, a minute, you start to settle in a little bit, I think, to just having those connections with people. And I think once you can get into that space and realize, it's nice. Like I noticed for when Patty, there was one show where Patty had another engagement. So I was doing the show by myself, and it's very different when it's only my face on here, at least when we do the show, it's like, I can see her. I have someone to talk to because we have our audience, but because I can't see them, I notice, oh, wow, it's different when don't have that other person there to sort of look at. And then so then I go into I remember now I'm picturing, the people. There's my people in front of me that I'm actually talking to. But it's interesting. It's almost just like little mind games that we start to play with ourselves so that we can, whatever it takes, I think to show up and get your message out there. Because I'm such a firm believer that we all have a message to share with people. And I think now is the perfect time to do that. So it's finding that confidence and that courage to step up and do it, because quite often there are people in the world that can only hear something in the way that you can say it. And so the longer we stay quiet, the longer we stay afraid, the longer it's going to take for those people to get the help that you could provide for them, And I think Patty always says this, and I think it's such a great thing to remember, is that we're talking to the people who want to hear our message. We're not talking to the people who want to criticize us and hate on us and don't care about our stuff. Never mind that. Like, just put your focus on the people who actually want to hear what we have to say. So
going back to what you were saying about the confidence piece, Georgie, and one of the things that I just finished doing a testimonial training for some of my clients who are trying to gather testimonial interviews with their people. And so I demoed with one of them. And so they were feeding back that the time that they actually felt like a pro with video was when they had their studio. And it's not a huge setup, but it's exactly as you said, it's having your stuff out. It's having a space where you can do everything. So one of my favorite things is really helping people equip themselves with their home studio. So when I was talking about backdrops and backgrounds and getting everything set up for people, it's like, as soon as you have a place to go and sit and this is going to be the place where I'm going to be doing my video casts or my interviews, it ups your game. It's all of a sudden like I'm taking myself seriously. And so I love that you said that. A lot of this, it's not even fake it till you make it. It's prepare yourself so you make it.
Yeah.
and then you all of a sudden, you know, I know for myself when I really doubled down probably at the beginning of this year on teaching online and starting to do my stuff online. And it really was, it was as soon as I bought my brand new iPhone, I thought, this is crazy. These phones are amazing. I'm probably not even going to use that camera for a lot of my B-roll and my, you know, out in the community shooting, because this iPhone is so terrific. And even so though, having my little iPhone studio and my ring light and everything good to go, I felt like I'm even upping my game more so than setting up that big, huge studio. I felt like, okay, I am totally a casting pro right now, with simply by setting up my equipment and getting everything ready. So I love that you said that. That's part of the game.
Well, and I think even if we look at, I think our body starts to respond in that way. So, right, we stand up a little bit taller, our mind knows what's happening, so we show up a little more confident. If I think about, you know, meditation, when I have a specific spot in my house where I go to do my meditation and my journaling, when I get in there, my body naturally responds to that space. You know, like I know what's coming, I know what to expect, and it responds for me. I often think of, I was doing a course, and the instructor of the course, the one course was 10 days. And so we always started every session with, she would do this little meditation and visualization, you know, feet on the floor, hands on your lap. To this day, when I hear her voice and she'll say, and she's a friend of mine, she'll say, okay, so just literally sit in the chair. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
right, it's
straight into meditation.
It's so ingrained.
Where did Georgie go?
Yeah, I'm back here now. But I think it's like that when we go to work in our office. So even if you work at home, if you have a designated space that's where you do your business, you show up differently. It's like, okay, this is my work time. This is where I make my phone calls. This is where I'm contacting my people. It's increases the confidence to show up and do the work. You know, if I'm always doing my work in my bed, it's different than when I am in my actual space. So I think setting yourself up for success, those little things make a really big difference, and being aware of it. What do I want to portray, or what's the best environment that supports me? You know, I like comfy, I like kind of mismatchy things, and I love Paris, so there's Paris all over the place, right? I love wallpaper, whatever, you know, but things that make me feel good when I'm in my environment to do my life's work.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we discredit those things a little bit, and even just setting up a specific space can help you do your work better. You know?
You reminded me of something that I think is helpful to mention, particularly with when we're talking about time of day and ritual and the importance of structure. And, you know, one of the things, especially with lighting, is to pay attention to what the light is like at different times in our studios. Mm-hmm. And for example, I did have a meeting first thing this morning. I don't usually meet at 7 o'clock in the morning on Zoom, but this morning I was, and the sunlight was streaming in the window and I was completely whited out. But I was like, wow, because I've never been on Zoom at 7 o'clock in the morning. So to pay attention to what is the light like at different times. And I've worked with somebody who decided to, because of that, the lighting was perfect in her house in the mid-afternoon. So she scheduled all of her Zoom calls, all of her interviews, everything in the mid-afternoon, just knowing that all she had to do was flick on one light, and no matter what the weather was like outside, she was good to go. So that's something to maybe give some consideration to, is having some structure and ritual around the times that you record, and it really will make things more tech easy for you.
Well, and you're more likely, I think, to do it too. Like I used to always be like, I love my freedom kind of thing, but yet I realize that when I have these certain routines and structures, it actually increases my freedom levels, as odd as it sounds, but it's true. You know, I get more done in the time that I've allotted for, you know, here's my work time, here's my meditation time, whatever it is. I get more done in the day when I do have these structures and these routines, as opposed to when it's just, whatever. It's no
Yeah.
big deal. And
Which
then I
we've
get
had for
nothing
the
done.
last 2 months, haven't we? We've had great practice at no structure. And I spent the first couple of weeks seriously just standing in the middle of my living room, circling around, trying to figure out where to go next and what to do next. I was just so stunned with it all.
It's
And then
so
finally I thought,
interesting.
okay, time to do exactly what you're suggesting, Georgie, and that's get some structure, get some ritual, because all of the structure I'd had before wasn't there anymore. And I loved my life pre-COVID. I think that's why I was probably spending the first 2 weeks missing my yoga people, missing my coffee shop people, and now, boy, I'll be like a lab dog puppy running up to them now. We get to see everybody. No hugging, Robyn. No hugging.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I know, it's so interesting because I found since this started, I feel like we've actually been busier since the COVID hit. And so for me, I've actually put way more structure into my days since it started. And I'm like, okay. And then going back through which we talked about this week too, about the things that really matter and looking at my buckets of things that matter and how do I incorporate those things in. And as we get busier in our work, it's like, okay, well, there's, for me, it's going outside and being in nature and doing my meditations and all of these kinds of things. Like, and I'm an early riser. Like, I'm up 5 a.m. I'm like up.
Good for you.
Because these things matter. And I'm like, okay. And they set me up for my day to get going and get started. And doing the show has been a huge structure put in place for me too, because I know we're live every day at 9:30, and then I'm usually on the phone with Patty somewhere between 8:30 and 8:45, and we're kind of just talking and going through things. So having that structure really, really helps. And I think especially for people that, things are starting to loosen up now, but with being in the isolation and the COVID thing, I think having a structure probably helped a lot of people, for those that were able to implement some kind of routine, so that it's a bit of more of a, the time isn't just running into nothing and you're just Netflixing all day, or, whatever it might be. Yeah. There's those, even from someone who likes to do what I want and have no structure.
Yeah.
I find the structure actually really, really helps me.
It'd be really fun to do a poll for all of us who got into self-employment and solopreneurship so that we would have more freedom, and then ask how many of us are really feeling like we're experiencing it. I feel like I'm experiencing autonomy, but
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm experiencing freedom. And it's not like I feel like I'm being tied up and bound. It's freedom to do the stuff that I love. And fortunately, I love what I do. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything that I don't want. Well, there's a few things that I don't want to do. I don't want to learn ConvertKit right now. I don't want to learn Infusionsoft or ConvertKit or any of those things, but I have to in order to have business success.
You can hire people.
I know, I'm going to. I'm just one of those people that I have to understand what I'm hiring out. I don't know if other people relate to that, but I have to have an overview enough of the situation to let go of it, especially when it's something as critical as onboarding my people and that kind of thing. So
totally agree.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand enough of it so that I can hand it over and not let that be a snag. And that's really what I want to do for people with video as well. I hate getting into these little tech eddies. And I know that really trips people up a lot. They don't know, how to get out of the next editing challenge. And that's one of the reasons that having a mentorship or a membership program where every Monday I get on with my people, and if they have tech challenges or if they have branding challenges or they want some feedback on their videos, I'm there for them to on an ongoing and regular basis, get them out of the things that are holding them up, and high five them and encourage them when they're kicking butt and getting their videos out there. And it's a community as well of people who are upping their game in visibility. And for us as women, it's not always super easy. So having a community of us all doing it together, I think is really, really helpful. Especially for those of us, it doesn't come supernaturally too. And
oh yeah, well, and I think you're right. I think it is nice having that community of people that can support you, because I think it is different. as women, and often sometimes getting in there and being like, oh man, I feel like I should hit the whatever it's called, the Botox filler, blah 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 blah, whatever you call it, right?
It's lighting, darling, lighting. Don't go.
But
Don't.
here's my newest thing, right? Is like, man, I hope all my pictures on Facebook look terrible. I hope my video's a little shitty, because then when I show up in real life, I look so much better.
Well, and you know what? You're real. You're real, and people want to connect with somebody who's real and authentic and human. And there's a reason that Barbies are plastic.
Well, and that's the test. It's like when you every time you go to a networking event or something like that, it would be like, oh, hey, I totally recognize you from your picture. You're Georgie, right? I'm like, yes, I am. And thank you very much. Because there's nothing worse than you see a picture of someone that's like their profile picture or whatever. And then you meet them in real life and it's like, I never would have got that.
I know that just happened. That just happened probably about 2 weeks ago. And it was on Zoom. So to be fair, there was a little bit of lost in translation, but I did not recognize this person by her profile picture at all, not even close. So,
and I think that's even the bigger kind of message or question or whatever, right? Is getting to that space where we are absolutely okay with who we are, and we're okay with who everybody else is too, instead of coming from this place of, because I think the more that we judge other people and the more that we're like, oh, look at that, look at this, we're only doing that to ourselves as well. And so the more we can have acceptance for other people, we can also have more acceptance for ourselves, and just, like say, really actually cheerleading people who are showing up every day on video, who are making those videos, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, oh my God, I just had the best thought, and your hair's all crazy and, whatever it is. Or I often think about that when I'm like running or something like that, and it's like face as red as can be, because I'm one of those people that doesn't matter how fit I am or whatever, my face always goes beet red. It's just the way it is. My children got that beautiful gift too, and they're like, Mom. I'm like, yeah, it's just the way it is. Like, it's never probably ever going to go away. It just is, and I think it's being okay with that and really kind of letting go of the superficialness of things so that we can share the messages that we have to share. And instead of judging and criticizing others, actually stepping into that with like, hey, thanks for just showing up and being real today, because that's pretty awesome. And it's not easy.
It's not, I think it's not easy, because we do have to get past that thing of wanting to look like we've got it all together. The irony being that I always feel closest to people when they don't have it together.
Right?
Somebody's a hot mess dissolved in the middle of the floor. I've got so much compassion and love, and you compare that to the person who's coiffed the nines and, 3-piece suit and, super pro, where I don't feel like I can get in.
Yeah.
I would rather connect with the person who's struggling, or who's really real, not necessarily struggling, but who's just showing up as completely real rather than insulated.
Totally. And I think the other piece of that, if coiffed and dressed to the nines is you, own it and show up like that every day. And I think you can tell the difference. Like I have a friend of mine who is she's a designer, and she loves fashion. And she calls herself an eco stylist, because she actually takes like used garments and things like that, but like Chanel and Dior and things like that, and then she transforms it into clothes and things like that, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, and she always looks awesome. But that's her. That's her being her. That's her being her. And she's when she when you see her, you don't think, oh God, it's like, no, it's just her oozingness of who she is. So I think but you can tell, right? She didn't go pull out some thing out of her closet to show up. It's just she goes to the grocery store like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just her. That's how she is.
It's her brand. It's her personal brand, and she's being authentic. Her showing up in sweatpants and yoga gear would be inauthentic.
I feel like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, but that would totally, she would actually be, that would be her faking it. Right. If she was trying to downplay who she is, because that's just not who she is. You know? I actually walked for her in a fashion show, the only fashion show I've ever done. Because I am not like that. Talk about experience out of the comfort zone. And I thought,
good for you that you did that.
She asked me, she goes, hey, I'm doing a fashion show. Would you walk for me? I was like, oh yeah, sure. So I'm thinking, it's like 20
like
people.
Walk.
And I'm thinking 20 people, we're just doing this little thing, no big deal. 1,000 people. It's one of the bigger fashion showy things. It was during Vancouver Fashion Week, and it was for this big fundraiser thing. They've been doing it for years. I'm like, wait a second. Wait a minute. Like, we had to go to this intro thing, and the guy's like, okay, this is how you walk. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, your back's, I'm like, dude, like, he goes, you'll be fine. This is what you do. I'm like, okay. And
you did it.
And I did it. And it was a full, but yeah. So her world, my world.
I love the comfort zone analogy, though. It's like, there's nothing like raising it by, parachuting yourself right out the top of it.
Oh man, that's why I was like, maybe I should think more before I say yes. But it was a good, it was a good
story.
It was a good experience. So I think I saw a question in the chat here as well. So let's see what we got. As a person who uses my hands a lot when I speak, someone suggested I make sure elbows in frame so hands don't go in and out of the frame. I noticed your frame is a bit higher. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And if you're recording something, like right now, I'm a pretty handy person too, but I've got my hands down, so you can't really see them with this framing. But you've seen me a couple of times. I've been expressive, and it looks a little weird, doesn't it? When you see these little mitts come up, they look like they don't really belong to me.
Like a dinosaur.
I love the question. It's actually a really good question. When I'm not on Zoom, I would frame myself farther back, so that if you're doing videos where you're using your laptop, I would highly recommend just stepping back a little bit. Still keep that rule of thirds, your eyes on the top thing. So you're not going to be way back and down in the frame. Keep your eyes high in the frame, but you can allow more of your torso. So when I'm shooting my course videos, I'm shooting from my hips up, so you can see my full hands in there, and it doesn't look weird and discombobulated. Really good question. And while you're on that, some of your viewers might have glasses and be wondering about lighting and glasses. And it's unfortunately something you just have to play with a little bit. I recommend raising the light a little bit higher so that when you're looking straight ahead, Patty, yours are perfect. There is no glare on your glasses at all. And that's a real challenge, is not having little green or white squares on your glasses blocking your eyes. So your lighting is fabulous. And sometimes people will say, should I wear my glasses or not? And I always say, if people will recognize you with your glasses, if that's part of your brand, always wear your glasses. If they're just sort of an afterthought that, like reading glasses or something, and people don't see you with them, then don't have them. If you need them to read, then wear them. It's really important. And so I'll work the lighting around people's glasses rather than have them take them off. I'm horrified when people say, take your glasses off, and just so that their lighting setup looks a little bit better. Going back to what you're saying, Georgie, or honor your people and their authenticity. So
yeah, it's like, I can't see.
Great question.
Any other questions that you might want to ask? I realize we're like 10:25 here. This is awesome. Talky. That's what we do. Talk. Laugh. Talk. Let me just see. I have a happy face sticker beside the camera, so it's easier for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good tip. I do the same thing. Oh, and you were talking about, Georgie, when you were talking about the, sometimes when you're on screen and you're not seeing anybody in front of you, and it feels a little bit like you're talking to nobody. I have a Winnie the Pooh stuffed bear. I don't do it anymore, but when I was first starting shooting videos, I put it behind my camera, almost to, almost as though I had a cameraman. But it reminded me that I was actually talking to somebody. So one of the tips I have is if you can just put a life-size picture of somebody that you really want to connect with, your ideal client or somebody who just really puts you in your heart when you're sharing your message on screen, put that in a place where you can kind of see it in your peripheral vision. So it reminds you to smile and to really speak to one person.
That's a really good idea. Even from, I think, that sort of internal mental space of, oh yeah, I feel happier, I feel more connected, I feel better. Such a big
I forgot one little piece on the eyeline thing as well. It's in the video if people want to go back and get it, but just, I was racking my brain. One thing I forgot to mention is to have your computer or your laptop or your phone at eye level height. Just by contrast, you can see if I had it on a desk. Right now I've got it on a music stand, and so it's probably about 4 or 5 inches higher than my desk. But if I was talking on my desk, it would look like this. And so do you see how skewed? It's not, the eye line is still on. I'm still, a third of the way down the thing, but you can just see my backdrop is completely blown out and weird. So keeping the computer or your phone or your lens at eye level is the best for perspective in your backdrop.
That makes sense.
I knew I was forgetting something as I was talking about it.
One more question for you. When you answered, you said when not on Zoom, are you angling down? What is the difference for Zoom?
When you're not on Zoom, you're angling down.
Does that mean maybe for the elbows?
Oh, backing off. Okay, so if I was, for the lady who was asking questions about hands, if I was recording for, I wouldn't use my laptop for recording my courses. I use my my DSLR cameras or my iPhone. I've been using my iPhone for my video branding challenges, just so that I'm on the level tech with everybody that I'm teaching to. So I do all of my video branding challenge videos on my iPhone. But that's where I was talking about. I would be, you can see here my sound is probably sacrificed a little bit, but I would be back off the camera and framed to about here so that when I'm talking with my hands, I'm a little bit more full framed. Does that answer the viewer's question?
I believe so. I think so. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, so framing, when I'm shooting a course video rather than being on Zoom, I'll be framed from my hips up.
I love that too, that you say, like, even when you're recording like your course stuff right now, you're using your phone. Because again, I think it's the technology, our excuses for technology that often stop us. And the reality is, especially if it's the first time you're making your course, you're probably going to do it about a gazillion more times. It's like draft one. So rather than going and buying all the fancy stuff and everything, if you can do it like that and then maybe get some help with, like, say, the editing or those kinds of pieces, I think that's awesome. Really awesome.
Well, and the thing that's so funny is it's only me from a filmmaker's perspective that would look at my iPhone videos and my, pro level camera videos. I'm the only one who's noticing that the backgrounds are blurred out and I've got a nice depth of field and all of that kind of stuff. But when I look at my videos side by side, the iPhone videos over the other ones, nobody's saying, oh, it looks so cinematic for an online course video. So I would have just probably annoyed people by saying, shoot your iPhone videos. And, yet I'm using all of this pro level equipment. I prefer showing people exactly what I'm using and we're all on the same page and all on the same playing field. And then it really doesn't look all that different these days. It's just good lighting, good framing, nice sound, and just knowing how to, and practice. Yes. That's the formula for me anyways.
Right. What kind of iPhone, someone wants to know?
Oh, I've got the iPhone XR. I got the 10X Pro. I got the one with more storage just because I'm doing a lot of video. I recommend if somebody's going to be using their iPhone to shoot a lot of video, get more storage because you don't want to be in the middle of shooting something and then your camera's full. And that happened to me probably about 5 years ago when I didn't get enough storage on my phone. It was just a pain to have to keep on downloading videos. So I use an iPhone. I love iMovie for editing in my phone. And so that's why I'm an Apple girl. I know that I have some clients that are challenged with Androids and editing. So if you're just getting going on this and you haven't bought equipment and you haven't bought your phone, I'd recommend for video editing and for video, Apples are great. Probably going to have some haters out there that love their Androids.
Android girl, but I also realize how stuck editing makes me insane. So and it's funny because usually I just get my daughter to do it because she's a Mac girl.
Oh, right. Well, if you've got, you can outsource it. That's the way to do it. Yeah, I've got a friend who, one of my clients actually is also a very, very good friend, is an Android gal. And I have to keep on saying, but she prefers to outsource all of her editing. She doesn't want to ever get in there and edit herself. She just prefers knowing how to save big money on the editing process and then getting somebody from Fiverr or local to do it. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. Thank you for the video tips. Thank you for, just this whole thing about, sharing our messages and practice, because I really think that's kind of the key to whether you're building your business, whether you're making videos, no matter what it is actually stepping in and doing the work. And that work it's the practicing, it's the falling down and getting back up and falling down and getting back up and trying new things and experimenting. But if it always stays in our head, it gets nowhere. That imaginary video or that imaginary course or that imaginary work that you want to do in the world is not doing any good in your head. It requires actually, feet on the ground, get out there and do something. So thank you. We will put your link in our chat and on our page so people can go and download your 5 tips so they can watch that and have the video. You can connect with Robyn, see what she's up to. She's got some really great courses and products, and she's just a really awesome human being that I think really resonates with who we are in the world and what we do. So you'll be in good hands over there.
Well, and hot on the heels of my social media comment, I've just built a Facebook page. It's VTV, Visibility Through Video. If people want to check out some of the upcoming courses, I have a 5-day video challenge that I'm starting in the middle of June. And so anybody that's in my Facebook group during the month of May, I'm going to cut it off at the end of May, but everybody who's in my Facebook group will get a notice to join for free. And after that, I'll be charging for it. But if you want to jump into the Facebook group VTV, Visibility Through Video, and get some information about that. And it's been a delight. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Georgie and Patty. I just had a blast, and I love what you're up to. I love the community you're creating. I love it that you're bringing women together and giving them the tools that we need in business so that we don't get stuck. We keep each other out of the tech eddies. So Thanks so much for the invitation.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
We will be back tomorrow for our weekly review to share what we've learned this week. And then, of course, we also have our workshop tomorrow after the show. So it's a big old full day of Patty and Georgie tomorrow if you want it.
Yeah, you guys don't take Fridays off, hey?
Nope. We don't take any days
we don't
off.
take any days off. That's right.
Yeah. Nice.
So
it's all good.
Yeah. I'll let Patty do our ending.
All right. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Same bat time.
Same bat channel. Okay. Bye. We're also a bit goofy.
Oh, that was so fun.
I record.
Are you